Well, welcome back to the channel, Old Cars New Van, and in part one of this series I showed you all the cars that I have owned as my daily drivers. Now in this second part I'm focusing on classic cars, hobby cars and kit cars throughout the years. I haven't always had classic cars, hobby cars and kit cars continuously. There have been large periods of time where I was really into motorbikes, and I'm not going to feature those on this because this channel is about old cars. So there's quite a gap where I didn't have any classic cars, but I had motorbikes. But my classic car experience really started in about 1990, and this, if you recall, is when I got my first, what I would call really proper car, which was my dad's old Audi 80. And I thought, wow, I've got the main car sorted. Let's get a hobby car. And one of the first I bought was a special edition Mini Rose. Back in the day in 1990, these were just cheap cars. You know, you could pick them up for a few £100. I know they're worth an awful lot of money today, but back then they were just old cars. And I bought it for a bit of fun, and I've always wanted a Mini and I never had one. So I do class it as a hobby car. Whether it was really a classic at this stage is dubious, but rather unique colour scheme, the rose. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. First taste of Mini driving. They handled fantastically. Really liked it. It failed its MOT quite badly, so I sort of had to get rid of it and bought a Moggy Minor, a white two-door Morris Minor. Which again was great fun. Now I think that was probably more a classic car, even back in sort of 1990, because you know they were pretty old even then. And yeah, it really sort of kindled my interest in classic cars, I suppose, at that early stage. And it sort of went from there, really. I swapped that for a Morris 1100 in Trafalgar Blue, again, to experience part of the whole BMC sort of classic car scene. And this was all when I was sort of 20, 21, you know, that sort of time frame. As I say, driving the Audi 80 as my main car. I then decided to get something a little bit newer, so probably some more hobby car alongside the Audi, and got this absolutely amazing condition yellow Ford Capri. Because again, I always just really wanted a Capri. It was only a 16L. It wasn't a fancy one at all, but it was just really fun. And I remember the summer of that year. I think we're probably 91 now. Just driving around in this Capri for a laugh, and it was absolutely great fun. Got rid of that because I sold it to a friend who really wanted it, and we came to a pretty good deal that suited both of us. And thought, I really fancy a Mini again. So I managed to find an 850 Mini, which again today would be worth an absolute fortune. It's this beige 850 Mini, because the 850s were the smallest engine they ever offered, and quite rare. And again, a friend said, "Oh, Mike, can I really buy that off you? I really like it." So again, that went. So I went out and bought something completely ridiculous, a bright red Jag. I bought it off the owner of a pub. He was a pub landlord. It was a pub landlord's car. It wasn't originally red. It was originally brown. You could tell under the bonnet, but it'd been resprayed blood red. It was quite a laugh. I mean, you know, I was a young man. I was just messing around, and at 21, it was quite cool to have this red Jag. I remember pulling up with all my friends outside a nightclub in Nottingham and dropping everybody off at the door in this bright red Jag. It was quite fun. Had one scary moment, because obviously being automatic, the throttle stuck open. It was on full acceleration, and I literally had to reach down and pull the pedal back up because it stuck to the floor. Anyway, you can imagine I didn't keep that awfully long. And the one I bought after that was the white Rover P6, which did actually feature in the last video. It started life as a hobby car, Gov 747L, alongside the Audi. But as I recalled in part one, when the Audi got written off, the Rover became my main driver. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that in this video because I've already covered it. So that's really the period 1990 to 1992. There's probably six sort of hobby or classic cars in there. Left university by this stage into getting my first job, and I didn't have a classic car for a while until I started getting those company cars, and then I thought, oh well, my money's not tied up in a vehicle now. I can go and get something interesting. And the weird and wonderful first thing I bought was this Lomax 224. This is a kit car based on a Citroen 2CV. This is the actual car, although taken later after my ownership, because I didn't have all these stickers on it when I had it. And I bought this as a sort of failed project because it was built, but I had to sort of take it all apart and rebuild it, really, because it hadn't been done particularly well. And it's sort of like the only kit car and the only vehicle that I've ever been involved in of actually building it. So it was quite a learning curve, quite an easy learning curve, actually, because if you're going to build a car, having that sort of 2CV chassis to work on where everything just bolts onto it and is quite an easy way to do it. The engine was good, so I didn't have to do much to the engine at all other than put a decent exhaust on it. But you'll see those black seats, they actually came out of a Morris Marina. They were beige, and I painted them black with special seat paint. And I can't believe that this photo, as I say, this was all in 1993. This photo is from 2020 because I spotted this car for sale. It's still on the road at an auction house, and those seats are still there. So quite proud of that my handiwork lasted all that long. Yeah, it was a bit of fun, wasn't it? I mean, you had to watch out for bumblebees. No roof at all. Just those fly screens. So great fun. The novelty wore off after a bit, and I actually swapped it for just an ordinary Citroen 2CV. I thought, well, I quite like the driving experience of Citroens, but I want an ordinary one now. So I swapped it for quite a late 1989 F-Reg for the UK market, Citroen 2CV in this sort of like pale blue colour that they did. And again, I was running this alongside my company cars, so this was just a bit of fun. Few months later, I swapped that for the first of my Suzuki SJs. For some reason, I got absolutely obsessed with Suzuki SJs. I don't quite know why. At the time, they had a bit of a hairdresser image in the UK. But anyway, they were quite good fun. You could go off-road, green laning in them, and they were very competent off-road. So the first one was this green SJ 410. Probably kept that for about 6 months and then swapped it for a SJ 413, just to have a little bit more power, because obviously the 410 was a 1 litre, ouch, and the 413 was at least a 1.3. The red one was the first car that I got bitten on because I bought it privately and I didn't HPI it, check its history, and it was actually a category write-off. For the money that I paid, it really didn't matter because it had been put back together extremely well and I couldn't tell. But it just goes to show that you should always HPI your cars when you buy them privately. Some dealers as well don't always do it. So yeah, that was a lesson learned, and that was the last car I ever bought without doing some checks on it. So this whole period is sort of 1993 to about 2001, just to give you a time frame. So eventually the novelty of SJs sort of wore off a bit, or so I thought, and I bought a Rover SD1. Because I always wanted one. I always fancied one and never had one. I bought the wrong one, a bit like my Rover 820. It's the thing of being about big Rovers. I seem to always buy the wrong one because I bought a 2300 Auto, which probably isn't the engine to have. And unfortunately, that engine did actually blow up, which isn't so good, is it? So I sold that and I bought an MGB GT. For some reason, I can remember the reg number of this one. It was VRE 555L, 1972. I used to call it Vressel because the 5s look like S's. So Vressel, the MGB GT, finished in, I think it's black tulip, this sort of purpley colour. Quite a light interior as well with overdrive. Nice car, really, really nice, and glad to have an MGB at last. Again, never had one. I was into my coupes at this time, which will become apparent because I swapped the MGB GT after about 5 months of hobby car, classic car ownership of it, and bought a lovely early Porsche 924. It was 1984, this. Absolutely beautiful. I loved that car. You know those cars that you just think, should never ever have sold that and I'd still like it today? Well, the Porsche is one of those. It's the only Porsche I've ever owned. It's not really a Porsche, it's a Volkswagen, you could argue. But I just really loved it. I thought it drove superbly, and yeah, it was just a really, really nice thing. I can't quite remember why I sold that. I think somebody offered me silly money for it, so I sort of went, yeah, okay, if you're going to pay me that much for it, you can have it. And then I went back to a Morris Minor, but this time the Traveller, because again, I always fancied the estate and I fancied the look of the wood, although that wood came back to haunt me because it wasn't as good as it looked, and yeah, that's why I got rid of the Traveller eventually. But no, it was fun. Trafalgar Blue Morris Minor Traveller. And then for some reason, I swapped that and went back to Suzuki SJs again and bought a 410. Another 1 litre. Why did I do that? I have no idea. In this sort of really sort of almost shell suit looking white colour scheme. That wasn't a good buy. I really liked my first 2 SJs, but I didn't like that third one. And I sold that and bought a classic Volkswagen Beetle, which spent all its time being repaired. I didn't really drive it very much at all. It was, again, not a great purchase. So that didn't last very long, probably only about 2 months, and I swapped that out. And again, another car I really wish I still had, Audi Coupe GT Mark 1 in silver, beautiful. Absolutely loved it. Really, really nice. Reminded me of my Audi 80, but was just really cool. Yeah, I really liked that. At the same time as owning the Audi, I bought another Mini, so now we're up to 2 hobby cars in once. But in fairness, in my defence, that was more because a friend of mine was looking for one and he was away on holiday and I found one and I bought it, and he was abroad for about 8 weeks. So I class it as my car, even though it was probably really just bought for somebody else. So I ran both the Audi Coupe GT and a blue Mini as a hobby car. When he came back off holiday, I sold him the Mini as arranged. And then I sold the Audi Coupe for a Land Rover, because I always wanted one. There's a common theme here, isn't there? I always wanted one. And that was great fun. I did a bit of green laning, and then another friend said, oh, I really fancy that Land Rover you got, Mike. Will you sell it to me? So I did. I'm not a car trader, by the way. It was just people knew that I was, hobbying cars and was just genuinely interested in cars. And so they always asked me if they could buy them off me. So I sold the Land Rover, and then again, another car, my goodness, I wish I had today. Opel Monza. I loved this thing. It was, I don't know why. It didn't have the digital dash, which I know is the one that everybody says, oh, you've got to get the one with the digital dash. It just had ordinary dials in it, but I absolutely loved that car. And I only sold that because I needed the money for, I think it was a house purchase at the time, but I so wish I still owned that car. So that is the period, 1993 to 2001. If my maths serves me correctly, there are 14 cars in there in that period. 6 in the 1990 to 1992 period. And then there's a big gap of 2 years, 2001 to 2003, where I didn't have any hobby cars at all, because I took my motorbike test, and I got into motorbikes. And as I say, I acknowledge it, it's a part of my life, but I'm not going to put it on here because this is a car channel. Other than to say, in 2003, I had a crash, which wasn't my fault, but you still come off badly on a bike if it's even if it's not your fault. So when I got the insurance payout on my motorbike, I went out and bought a Mark 1 MX-5. green, absolutely beautiful car. That loved it, really, really nice. So this would have been probably late 2003, maybe early 2004, and I kept that for about a year. And the only reason I sold that was because I got back into bikes again and got back on. So I needed the money to buy a hobby bike. So from '04 all the way through to 2017, 13 years, no classic cars at all. Completely lost interest. Didn't want them in my life. It was all motorbikes, motorbikes, motorbikes. And then at that time, I was getting divorced and I was meeting my lovely wife, Maya, and got back into cars. And the first car we bought together as a bit of a hobby car was a Mark 1 Audi TT convertible. You could argue not really a proper hobby car, more just an old car, but it was great fun. I mean, we both had ordinary cars, so it is a hobby car. And I really liked it, actually. I really liked the early Mark 1 Audi TTs. So much so that when we decided that this one, because this was only the front-wheel drive 150, wasn't quite what we were looking for, we bought another one with the full-fat BAM engine, 200 and something odd brake horsepower, four-wheel drive quattro. That was nice. Again, not sure why I sold that. Really loved the colour, loved the BBS alloy wheels on it that were from new as an optional extra. Really, really nice car. Actually, I do know why we sold it, because we wanted a convertible again, and we sold that to buy Keith, which is Maya's current classic car. So we're coming right up to date now, because obviously Keith is still on the fleet and is very much staying. As you know, and documented on here, I went out and bought Eddie, our T2 Volkswagen. Didn't quite work out for us. The driving experience wasn't quite what I'd hoped. And that brings us right up to date with obviously my latest purchase of Dizzy, the Rover P6, which is great fun. So there we go. That is the list of sort of classic cars, hobby cars and kit cars, ignoring motorbikes, over the years. I appreciate these series of videos will not be for everybody. I'm being a bit selfish. This is as much me documenting for my benefit as it is for the channel and the viewing. But if some of you get any interest out of it, then I'm glad. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And part 3, which is actually going to be the biggest part, believe it or not, is every other type of car that I have ever owned. Silly things that I bought for 2 weeks and then thought, I'm getting rid of that. It will all become clear in the next video. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.